Welcome to Creepy, the best horror storyteller on YouTube.
Part 1, Whispers on the Wind.
The rusty iron gate gnashed open like a tortured yawn, releasing a chorus of groans and creaks that echoed through the overgrown wilderness. A veil of twilight hung heavy in the air, the last slivers of daylight struggling to pierce the canopy of twisted branches that clawed at the sky. Zephyr, a young woman with eyes the color of storm clouds, squinted into the gloom, a thrill of apprehension tingling down her spine. Behind her, her companions, Finn and Anya, exchanged nervous glances, their faces grim beneath the encroaching darkness. They had heard the whispers, of course. Rumors swirling like mist around the abandoned amusement park, nestled like a decaying tumor in the heart of the forbidden woods. Whispering Willows, they called it, a place where laughter once soared on roller coasters and screams mingled with the joyous clang of carnival bells. Now, silence reigned, broken only by the mournful sigh of the wind through rusted metal and the rustle of unseen creatures in the tangled undergrowth. Zephyr, fueled by a morbid curiosity and a touch of teenage defiance, had insisted on braving the forbidden grounds. Finn, always the level-headed one, had reluctantly agreed, his protective gaze never straying from Zephyr. Anya, the artist of the group, her eyes perpetually searching for inspiration, saw a canvas in the decay, a macabre masterpiece waiting to be captured. The first tendrils of fog began to curl from the damp earth, twisting and slithering like spectral serpents. The path, paved with cracked concrete and choked with weeds, led deeper into the park, past silent carousel horses frozen in mid-gallop and a skeletal Ferris wheel, its rusted ribs reaching for the bruised sky. The air grew thick with the cloying scent of decay, punctuated by the sharp tang of rust and the acrid bite of mildew. A disfigured clown figurine, its once vibrant colors washed away by time and weather, leered from atop a ticket booth, its painted smile a grotesque parody of joy. Zephyr shivered, feeling an unseen gaze prickle at her back. Was it just the wind, or did the painted eyes in the clown's mask seem to follow her every move? Anya shivered too, her charcoal clutched tightly in her hand, as if trying to ward off the gathering shadows. They reached the heart of the park, a stagnant pond reflecting the skeletal silhouette of a roller coaster, its track a twisted dragon slumbering amongst the weeds. A low moan, seemingly rising from the very depths of the water, sent shivers dancing down their spines. Anya stumbled back, her foot hitting something hard and cold. It was a child's shoe, faded and worn, lying near the edge of the murky pond. A single blood-stained sock nestled inside, a silent testament to some forgotten tragedy. The air grew colder, the shadows deepening into malevolent forms that danced at the edges of their vision. Zephyr felt a sudden, overwhelming urge to flee, to escape the suffocating atmosphere that pressed down upon them. But before she could take a step, a bone-chilling scream ripped through the stillness. It wasn't human, a raw, primal shriek that clawed at their insides and sent their hearts hammering against their ribs. They spun around, searching for the source, but darkness shrouded the park, swallowing all but the faintest slivers of moonlight. The scream came again, closer this time, accompanied by the clatter of metal and the unmistakable groan of machinery coming to life. They were running now, blind and panicked, the path choked with shadows and unseen menace. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light ripped through the darkness, momentarily revealing the monstrous visage of the roller coaster. Rusted chains groaned as the rusted beast lurched awake, its skeletal track creaking like tortured bones. Zephyr, Finn, and Anya stumbled to a halt, rooted to the spot by terror as the monstrous contraption lumbered towards them, its rusted claws gnashing in the inky darkness. Then, silence. The lights died, plunging them back into an even deeper abyss. The only sound was their ragged breathing and the pounding of their hearts. Had the nightmare machine passed them by? Or was it simply waiting, lurking in the darkness, for the perfect moment to strike?
Part 2, Where Nightmares Grind Metal.
They stood breathless, huddled together like frightened rabbits in the face of an approaching storm. The silence throbbed, thicker than the fog that now swirled around their ankles, obscuring the skeletal silhouette of the awakened roller coaster. Had it passed? Or was it merely biding its time, playing with them like a cat with a cornered mouse? Zephyr strained her ears, searching for any telltale creak of metal, any ominous groan that might herald the return of the monstrous contraption. The only sound that reached her was their own ragged breathing, harsh against the eerie quiet. A twig snapped somewhere in the woods beyond the overgrown tracks, sending a jolt of fear through her. Was it just the wind, or something more sinister, something stalking them through the gloom? "We need to move," Finn whispered, his voice tight with barely contained panic. "Stay close, stick to the light." He fumbled in his backpack and produced a small flashlight, its meager beam carving a narrow path through the darkness. They crept forward, shadows dancing grotesquely around them, clinging to their heels like unwanted companions. Anya, usually unafraid with her sketchbook as her shield, stumbled alongside them, her eyes wide with terror. They found themselves deeper in the park now, the air thick with the stench of rust and decay. The twisted shapes of abandoned rides loomed around them, skeletal remains of forgotten laughter. A Ferris wheel loomed against the moonless sky, its rusted spokes like the ribs of a long-dead giant. A half-collapsed funhouse leered in the distance, its distorted facade a mask of twisted amusement. The path narrowed, choked with brambles and fallen timbers. Anya tripped, her cry echoing through the desolate park. As she scrambled to her feet, her hand brushed against something cold and smooth. It was a metal plaque, half buried in the dirt. With a trembling hand, she brushed away the grime, revealing an inscription, "The Cackling Clown's Chaos Coaster." A shiver ran down Zephyr's spine. Was this the name of the monstrous roller coaster? And was the cackling clown the entity that controlled it? A sudden clanging sound, like the distant echo of metal on metal, made them jump. The sound seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, wrapping around them like a cold fog. They hurried on, the flashlight beam dancing on the uneven path. Then they saw it. A rusted tunnel, gaping maw-like against the backdrop of twisted metal. The tracks of the Chaos Coaster disappeared into its inky depths, disappearing from sight even in the meager light of the flashlight. Finn hesitated, his gaze flickering between the tunnel and the shadows that danced beyond. "We shouldn't go in there," he murmured, his voice barely audible. Zephyr, however, her fear momentarily eclipsed by morbid curiosity, gripped his arm. "We have to. That's where it went. That's where the answers are." Before Finn could protest, she surged forward, pushing into the dark maw of the tunnel. Anya, her eyes wide with apprehension, followed close behind. Finn, caught between fear and loyalty, followed suit, the beam of his flashlight a frail shield against the encroaching darkness. The tunnel was cold and damp, the air thick with the smell of rust and decay. Water dripped from the cracked ceiling, echoing through the oppressive silence. The tracks of the Chaos Coaster ran down the center, like a rusted spine leading into the unknown. As they walked, Zephyr noticed strange symbols etched on the tunnel walls, glyphs that seemed to writhe and twist in the flickering light. A sound, a low hum that vibrated through the very bedrock, made them pause. It was growing louder, closer, accompanied by the unmistakable groan of rusted metal. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and Zephyr felt a primal fear clawing at her insides. They turned to flee, but there was nowhere to go. The tunnel narrowed behind them, the walls closing in like a tomb. The hum became a roar, the tunnel floor vibrating under their pounding feet. And then they saw it. Through the swirling fog of steam and sparks, the rusted monstrosity emerged from the darkness. The Chaos Coaster, a skeletal dragon adorned with garish clown faces and grotesque laughter masks, its rusted claws gnashing hunger. Anya screamed, a choked cry that was swallowed by the roar of the engine. Panic surged through them. They scrambled backwards, bumping against the cold, damp walls. But it was too late. The roller coaster was upon them, its rusted teeth closing in for the kill. In a desperate last attempt, Zephyr lunged for a rusted lever protruding from the wall. With a Herculean effort, she pulled it down. The tunnel shuddered, metal groaned, and then, with a deafening screech, the Chaos Coaster derailed. The monstrous contraption derailed, its rusted claws tearing into the tunnel wall with a shriek of tortured metal. Sparks flew, showering them in a rain of fiery embers. The tunnel groaned, threatening to cave in around them. Anya screamed, clinging to Finn as the ground swayed beneath their feet. In the chaos, Zephyr saw her chance. With another surge of adrenaline, she scrambled onto the rickety platform jutting out from the derailed track. It was a maintenance walkway, narrow and dangerous, but their only escape from the collapsing tunnel. Anya, spurred by fear, followed close behind, her charcoal clinking against her backpack like nervous teeth. Finn hesitated, caught between fear and responsibility. He glanced at the tunnel entrance, at the swirling fog that now billowed out like the breath of some malevolent entity. Then, with a resolute grimace, he turned and followed them onto the rickety walkway. The platform groaned under their weight, rusted metal protesting their intrusion. They inched forward, clinging to the rusted guardrail, the monstrous groans of the derailed roller coaster echoing through the collapsing tunnel. Below them, the track twisted like a broken spine, its rusted claws reaching up in vain. Suddenly, the tunnel floor gave way. With a thunderous roar, the ground beneath them crumbled, plunging the walkway into darkness. Zephyr, Anya, and Finn screamed, their bodies jolted by the sheer force of the fall. They landed hard on a pile of debris, disoriented and bruised. Anya whimpered, clutching her injured ankle. Finn scrambled to his feet, checking on them both. Zephyr, shaken but unharmed, pulled herself up, her eyes scanning the darkness. They were in a cavernous chamber, dimly lit by moonlight filtering through a gaping hole in the ceiling. The monstrous skeleton of the Chaos Coaster lay sprawled beneath them, its rusted claws frozen in a final, futile gesture. And amongst the wreckage, something moved. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall and shrouded in darkness. It moved with an unsettling gait, its limbs seeming to bend at unnatural angles. Its face, hidden in the darkness, pulsed with an eerie blue light that cast long, grotesque shadows on the cavern walls. "Welcome," the figure rasped, its voice a grating whisper that scraped against their nerves. "You have trespassed in my domain. Now, you will pay the price." Zephyr, Anya, and Finn exchanged terrified glances. They were trapped, cornered by a creature born from the darkness and the nightmares of a forgotten amusement park. The whispers on the wind had never been exaggerations. The screams that echoed through Whispering Willows were real, and they were about to become part of its macabre chorus. As the figure advanced, its glowing eyes fixing on them with unholy hunger, Zephyr knew their fight for survival had just begun. In the shadows of the twisted metal beast, surrounded by the ghosts of laughter and screams, they were alone and facing a horror beyond their wildest nightmares.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for more similar horror stories.